Actually, I was out in Vegas, and Keith Icy was doing an event, and Reed was out there. We'd actually didn't get a chance. I think we bypassed each other a few times, but then I got a chance to meet him a little more thoroughly after that. But ReedWorks comes highly recommended by Keith Ikley with Extreme Marketing Machine, and they do a lot of work together. Reed actually goes around the nation speaking and teaching groups of people on their lines of credit and our business funding here, which she's going to get in detail. And what I really like about this has some really unique aspects to it, a little different, and that's why Keith was able to start working with it, because he really liked it, and I really liked it also. So we're very excited to be able to offer this in Agora. We have some big plans. We're working on another really big project on this right here with Reed, with Agora. But getting to know Reed, Reed's just a fantastic guy, great public speaker, and really creative when it comes to the business model. So with that, Reed, I'm going to hand it off to you, and we'll go and get this started.
Wow. Thank you very much, Vince. That was kind. I was looking around for who you were talking about there. Anyway, so I appreciate that. Seriously, very, very kind. And just, again, I've really enjoyed the association I've had with Agora, and I'm very, very excited. Our firm is extremely excited to be working with each and every one of you individually, as well as with your clients. I think you're going to find this an exciting journey, and very importantly, extremely profitable. Melissa will be cutting a lot of checks as a result of this. Anyway, I've been asked by Vince and Jeremy and the team to kind of go through the presentation like we would normally do, sort of live and in person or in a webinar, but at the same time, pause or break, so to speak, at certain points and do just a little augmented training, some of the stuff that would be sort of behind the curtain, if you would, or behind the scenes. So that's kind of the flow that we'll go, and hopefully it doesn't come across too disjointed. And hopefully my mouth works so I can articulate a little bit better there. Anyway, so let's go ahead and begin. As you can see on the screen, let's see, do I have?
Indeed, Bob, sir.
I've got, what, did I just advance that, or did you advance that, Jeremy?
I think I accidentally clicked it.
Okay, all right. I was just trying to find my cursor so people can see that. All right. As you can see, in the upper left-hand corner, the name of the firm is Business Capital Experts. And Business Capital Experts itself, the entity, has been around for not quite, but almost 2 years. Those of us involved with the entity, the principals and key stakeholders and players behind what we do, we all have between 7 and 25 years of experience in this space. So we understand it. We know it. We're good at it, to be blunt. One of the things that's very important to us is the tagline below where it says Business Capital Experts. It says when results matter. This is something we take very seriously. In fact, we're somewhat obsessive about it with respect to our clients and hence your clients. And that is when results matter. When somebody needs a result, they need real funding, they ought to come to us. Typically on my webinars and in the audiences when I speak live and in person, and I suspect the same thing is true here, a lot of people have paid upfront fees to organizations that have produced mediocre to poor results. That's not the case here. And I'm going to walk you through how we do things and what we do. We're going to be very, very straightforward. But once again, when results matter, you come to Business Capital Experts. You'll hear us refer to ourselves and myself as BCE moving forward. Now, the majority of today's conversation is going to be related to UBLs. We're going to toss in some UCLs, and I'm going to explain what those stand for: unsecured business lines of credit and unsecured cash loans. And yes, unsecured is, you heard me correctly. But as we make the transition, let me go ahead and kind of, we'll talk about sort of the big picture, and then we'll drill right down into some very, very specifics. If I may, I'd like to direct your attention to the bottom right-hand corner where we talk about the game has changed. The game itself has changed, and it has. Now, when I talk about the game, what am I referring to? I'm referring to the funding of small businesses. We're not talking about gaming the system. And we use a lot of sports metaphors in what we do. And so, again, the game itself has changed. Now, I've been really fortunate to be part of a team that did some really incredible things in what we call the bad old days. And the old days, that was only 10 or 12 years ago when we did this. I was really fortunate. At one point in time, I was a senior VP of strategic partnerships for this organization, and I was mentored. I was privileged to interact with some brilliant men and women who pioneered this kind of thing in the industry, targeting what we call the SOHO, or small office, home office, or the small business owner space. And we literally helped our clients obtain over $1 billion in just a shade over 7 years. Now, that's pretty staggering. Now, I know we're all just listening, but I usually ask my audiences just by raise of hands and just role play with you, who would like to have a slice of the next $1 billion? Because we're going to be able to accomplish this. Now, when I say that the game itself has changed, it has. The marketplace is faster, it's flatter, it's digital. There are no borders in terms of what we can do. It's just better. Now, in the past, your major funding institutions and financial institutions, et cetera, ones you're familiar with and some that you've never heard of, they pretty much ignored that small business owner space. Okay? They focused on medium-sized and large-sized businesses. To use a baseball example, they were after the companies that were home runs and the ones that hit doubles and triples. Now the marketplace has responded. They recognize that there's this vast this huge small business owner community. Now, maybe they're all just singles and the occasional double, but man, they know there are a lot of them. So, anyway, what are 3 things that set us apart from other competitors? And I use air quotes when I say competitors. If you're taking notes, please write these 3 things down. These are the sort of primary things that separate us. Number 1, the team. We have the team. As in sports, the same thing applies in business. The team with the best talent or the most talent wins. We understand that, and we have the talent. Number two, understanding the game. Okay, again, not gaming the system, but understanding how the system works. By understanding all the rules and how they do it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, we're able to do things the right way to help you achieve your dreams. In other words, we can create distinct game plans, that are applied to each and every individual business owner. Number 3, we have the relationships. We have over 400 relationships in just UBL and UCL funding alone that we can tap and reach out to on behalf of our clients. And as we get into what we do and how we do it and the metrics behind it, you're going to be surprised. And that's one thing I really want to share with you. Okay, but let me repeat it one more time. Number 1, we have the team, because I know I go a little faster than people can write. We have the team. Number 2, we understand the rules of the game. We understand the game. And number 3, we have the relationships. All right. Now, when I'm speaking both live, like today, and in person at events, I always ask people a question and have them raise their hands. And invariably, every time, 99% of the hands go up. So again, just talking here, how many people in this audience today have heard statistics similar to this? 95% of all small business owners fail in 5 years. 85% fail in 2 years. 70-some-odd% fail in 3 years. And we've all heard statistics similar to that. And I think that's interesting, and they may all be true. Okay? But for me, I don't know if we're asking the right question. See, when a business fails, I don't think is really the most important question. It's neat to know, but I don't think, that it's the most important. It's like, do you start a time clock and I've got a 9 in 10 chance of failing? No. Okay, I think the most important question is, go ahead and jump forward here, Jeremy. Again, I think the most important question is, why do business owners fail? So I really don't care if the business owner is going to fail in 1 year or 5 years. I want to know why they're going to fail. Go ahead and press the buttons all the way through on this, Jeremy. We'll skip the animation. All right. And here's what we know from the SBA. 80% fail. 4 out of 5 people fail for one reason only, lack of money. Now, they use fancy terminology, undercapitalization, poor deployment of resources, blah, 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 blah. Okay? Bottom line is 4 out of 5 small business owners, folks just like you, fail for one reason and one reason only, money and the lack of it. 1 out of 5 failures, as you can see on the screen, are all of the other reasons combined. Bad product, bad location, bad marketing, bad partnership, bad economy, bad. All of the other bads combined, only 1 out of 5 failures, 4 out of 5 lack of money. Now we're going to solve that for everybody. And I'm going to show you that very specifically today. We're going to be very, very straightforward with you. Jeremy, you go ahead and advance the slide. All right. Now, if you're taking notes, please write this down, the 97-3 rule. 97-3 rule. I'm going to get specifically into that in just a second, but I'd like all of us to take a step back together, and let's talk about where money comes from. From whence cometh all funds. There are only two sources, or fountainheads, of all money. The first is debt-based funding. Debt-based funding. That all comes with an interest rate, an amortization schedule that has to be paid back. Okay? Whether it's a credit card, whether it's a car loan, whether it's a mortgage, a HELOC, whatever the case may be, that's debt-based funding. So everything is a derivative of that. The second source of all funding is what we call equity-based funding, okay, or ownerships or / at-risk capital. What it suggests is this. It suggests that Vince, Jeremy, Melissa, and myself, we all get together. We form an entity. We put our money into it. Our money, we capitalize it, and then we hope that that business becomes wonderfully successful so that we become wildly wealthy. If it doesn't, it's kind of an aw shucks moment, something of an understatement, but it's over, and we move on to the next project. So once again, it's debt-based funding, and the second one is equity-based funding or risk capital. Jeremy, will you advance the slide? All right. Now, I want to go over the 97-3 rule here with you, both as applies to debt-based funding and equity-based funding. And again, we're doing some training in here as well. So bottom line is this. Out of 100 business owners that apply for debt-based funding or apply for funding in their business name to institutions, 97% are declined, turned down. Now, that's a terrible statistic. Those are horrific numbers, and you only have a 3% chance of succeeding. You have better odds of coming to Las Vegas, going to one of the casinos, going up to the craps table, and literally on one single throw of the dice, throw 2 sixes. Called boxcars. You have better odds of getting that than you do being approved for funding for your dream, for your baby. Only a 3% success rate. Now, figuratively speaking, if I cross over to the Wall Street side or the equity-based side of funding, get this statistic. Out of 100 business owners that get through the qualifying process, or the screening process, what I should say, that clear the screening process and are able to present to a capital group or an investment group like our, et cetera, VCs, angel investors, whatever the case may be. Once again, there's only a 2 to 3% success rate. Okay? And again, those are real world numbers, not TV show numbers. And having just shot a pilot for a new reality TV show, I can, those numbers aren't the real world numbers. Anyway, bottom line is this. It begs the question. Why would two completely different modalities, methodologies for determining whether or not a business owner should get the funding that they need to build their dream, have almost identical results? Well, I would opine it's because those business owners aren't what we would call, air quotes, funding ready. In other words, they themselves are the team. They haven't accessed an organization such as ours. Okay, you haven't done that. Number two, you don't know how the game is played. More often, you don't understand what you needed to do, what had to be done, well, we'll get into that, how you do those things. And then number three, they don't have the relationships. I mean, for heaven's sakes, 90% of them, 97% of them are not even talking to the right audience, if you would, for what it is that they're trying to do. So anyway, we're back to that 97-3 rule. What do we do? Oh, by the way, when I do the in-person events, I always have a couple of smart Alecs in the room, right? There'll always be a few. And they're like, hey, Reed, no problem. Just apply up to 100 different institutions for us. The 3 that approve us, yay, 2 thumbs up, we're good to go. I laugh, shake my head, but only that easy. If all I had to do was put a bunch of cubicles together and put some admin people in there, and all they did was fill out applications all day long, that would be sweet. It doesn't work that way. See, here's what that study said, and I left this out deliberately. Okay, 97% of us are turned down about 100% of the time. Think about that. 97% of us are turned down about 100% of the time. So in that dark, gray, gloomy cloud, where is that bright, shiny silver lining? Well, it's right there on the screen, folks. It's 3%. See, 3% of you are approved about 100% of the time. So the question is, Which group do you want to be in, the 97 or the 3? I suspect if I ask you to raise your hand, you'll all want to be in the 3%. And that's reality. Now, I'm going to say something that's rather bold, okay? All of our clients, sooner or later, depending upon eligibility, and we're going to talk about that, but all of our clients will be in the 3%. Imagine that. If you decide to take advantage of this opportunity, you too will be in that 3%. And when I show you the numbers that are approved about 100% of the time, when I show you the numbers here in just a few minutes, we're going to hopefully blow you away. All right, Vince, go ahead and advance the slide. You're not Vince, Jeremy. Sorry. All right, now on the screen you see a slide, a bunch of beautiful models holding briefcases. Now this is based upon the TV show called Deal or No Deal. Now if you've seen the show, this will be a great illustration. If you haven't seen the show, maybe not quite as impactful. But the premise, and I'm not going to go into how the game show is played, but the premise is this, okay? Each one of those beautiful models is holding a briefcase. Inside one of those briefcases is $1 million. Inside another briefcase is a penny. Now the contestants start a guessing game and blah, 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 blah. I'm going to stop there. For our purposes, that's what most small business owners feel like, whether they're in the real estate space or they're starting up their dream or whatever the case may be, running their Agora business, things like that. They're guessing. They're hoping they can get it, all right? So bottom line is this. Write this down. No more guesswork. Once again, no more guesswork. Now, I don't know who we have on our webinar here this morning, so I'm just going to role play here. Okay, Jeremy, if the money that you want is in briefcase number 10, do you want me squirreling around in 7 and 8?
Well, of course not.
Of course not. Melissa, if the money that you need is in briefcase 2, do you want me, messing around in 5 and 6?
I'd prefer you went straight to 2, but no.
Yeah, exactly. I like the choice, the words are there, straight to it. Let's not fiddle around trying to figure it out. Let's just go exactly where the funds are. So once again, when results matter, you come to VCE because we know what's behind each one of those briefcases, figuratively speaking. All right. Vince, will you go ahead and move it forward? I was tapping my button on my keypad. Anyway, all right. Last thing I want to share with you before we kind of get into some of the meat and potatoes that we're talking about is what we call the no garbage slide. All right. I used to call it the no BS slide, but staff members thought that might be a little too intense for some of the audience's sensitive ears. But notice how I just so subtly snuck it in anyway. All right. So this is the no garbage slide. Basically, what we're saying is this. I'm going to be very straightforward with you about what we do, how we do it, the qualification criteria, the process sequence, timetables, numbers and metrics, and what you can expect in terms of funding. Okay, in terms of it's just straightforward. I know you've been on webinars with other organizations, not Agora, thank goodness, and you've been to seminars and workshops where they dangle carrots, throw out some fluff. You got to buy something to get the rest of it, learn it all. Not with us. We're going to blow you away by how we do what we do. So once again, very straightforward. And we will answer any and every question you have about what we do and how it's done. And again, we'll just be very, very direct with you. So hopefully that you find that refreshing. Go ahead, Jeremy. All right. Okay. Go ahead and skip through that slide. Next slide. Jeremy, next slide. Hello? There we go. All right. Jeremy, go ahead and hit all of them, bring it all up. Okay, don't worry about the animation on the webinar. Okay, folks, you're going to see this slide twice. Okay, and the purpose right now, keep going until you feel the other two columns. What we're doing here is I just want to draw your attention to and contrast what we're talking about with different types of funding. Now, most of us know that we should separate our business from our personal. We know that. We know it for tax reasons. We know it for asset protection reasons. But we don't typically do that when it comes to the funding. I've lost the image on the screen.
Vince,
anyway.
You still seeing it there? It's up on my side, so.
Well, I'll continue talking. I've just got a black screen. Anyway, so what we're saying here is we're going to separate our personal from our business in terms of how we fund our businesses. Now, what you see on the screen is you're going to see 3 columns. Now, the first column here on the left is personal. Both of these columns are business. So here's our separation line between personal and business. Okay, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail here until we see the slide a second time. But what we're saying here is here's your personal and here's the business. Now, don't get me wrong. All of us started right here. I did. We all do. You know, we tap all of our own personal resources, our own credit cards. We tap our own savings accounts. Some of us take out HELOCs and mortgages. And a lot of the business owners that you'll be reaching out to in Agora, that's what they've done to get them to build their business, to create it. Right now, a lot of folks are tapping their retirement savings accounts via self-directed IRAs and self-directed 401ks. Very popular right now. But once again, that's all their own money that they're putting at risk in order to achieve their dream. And I applaud that. What we're going to do now is we're going to spend most of our time on the next 2. Now, I just want to draw a contrast. Operating capital versus investment capital. Operating capital is the cash-based monies that you use to run the day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month operations of your business. Okay? That's what you're doing there. Okay, hey, stop on that slide. The far right column is your investment capital. This is going to be your asset-backed play, the quote, big money. So right, now, jumping to this screen right here. It says when results matter. Once again, that's our theme, and I'd like to go over some of our metrics and our numbers here. Jeremy, it's starting. Okay. All right. Will you go back to the when results matter? While that's coming up, go ahead. Okay, let me just kind of describe it. When we get back to that slide.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through it. Real quick, hold on, sorry to interrupt you there. Vince, everybody else seeing my screen okay?
I see the 3 primary funding categories.
Okay, Troy said it looks fine. Okay. All right, I'm on when results matter. Go ahead and read. Sorry for the interruption there.
Okay. It's coming back up on my screen. So when results matter. There's several points I want to make here. Of them, believe it or not, the most important is that very first one, the 2-year game plan. We take all of our clients, each one of you, and we put you on a 2-year game plan. This isn't what in our industry is what's called a one and done or simple credit card stacking or whatever the case may be. We're going to literally take you through, map you out, put you on a 2-year game plan. And we're going to create together some amazing results. Because, again, we do things the right way. So 2-year game plan. All right. Now, in your notes, let's digress here really quickly. Write down these letters. Okay? Put one below the other. Please write down the letters UBL and then write down the letters UCL. UBL and UCL. UBL stands for unsecured business lines of credit. You'll always hear me insert into this unsecured cash-based business lines of credit. Now, I say that because a lot of folks have hired companies, paid several thousands of dollars up front, and they're primarily getting vendor credit, okay? Vendor credit, i.e. Vistaprint, Home Depot, things like that. We're talking about cash-based money, things that you can deploy to grow your business much better. Now, don't get me wrong, vendor credit is an important arrow to have in your quiver, but it's not what small business owners need first. So again, unsecured cash-based business lines of credit. UCL stand for unsecured cash loans. Unsecured cash loans. So we have unsecured lines and unsecured loans. All right? Lines are what we call forever money. Now I'm going to use a simple example of $10,000. That we have a $10,000 line of credit. Okay? You have that money forever. You get to draw down, pay back, draw down, pay back. Okay? Unsecured cash loans, no. Amortization schedule, regular payments, interest rate. Okay? The difference between the two. But both are unsecured, and we're going to talk about the strengths of those in just a minute. So once again, 2-year game plan. Then as you can see, we've got the UBLs broken down into rounds. And this is just an example of what will happen over the next 2 years. So round 1, phase 1, stage 1, whatever you want to refer to it. Our clients, the average client obtains somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000 in unsecured cash-based business lines of credit. Now imagine that. Just pause for a moment and think to yourself, what would you do if you had that kind of money in your space? How would you deploy it? How would you grow your business? I mean, would you just flat out blow up what you're doing in terms of Agora, et cetera? Anyway, so there's 50, 100,000. Now those are the numbers. What I'd like to do now is pause for a second, and I'd like to go through the metrics or the statistics behind that. Okay, most of us have heard of what we call the 80-20 rule. Okay, I'd like to talk briefly about what we call the 80-15-5 rule. Okay, 80-15-5 rule. 80% of our eligible clients will obtain somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000 in that first round. 15% of our clients will obtain less than that, $25,000, $35,000, $45,000. Now again, that's $35,000 that they didn't have yesterday that's tied to their EIN, not their Social Security number, to the EIN, the business's tax number, in terms of what they're doing. Okay, and then 5%, boy, that's a great group to be in. They obtain over $100,000 in that first round. But once again, we just challenge all of our clients to be statistically average and be somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000. Okay? All right, then we proceed round two. Round two typically starts somewhere between 60 and 120 days after the completion of round one. But we monitor that. We work with you. We're coordinating with you. We've got all kinds of post-funding acquisition trainings that we do with each and every person. Okay? So then we go to round two. In round two, our clients obtain somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000 new dollars, new lines that they'll be able to then tap, et cetera. So, and then you see how that process would continue over the course of 2 years. Now you'll note here that on the UCLs it says we use cycles. Okay, cycles. Now on the UBLs, our average client, eligible client, obtains somewhere between $60,000 and $80,000 in their first cycle. Though it's not uncommon, okay, again, less than 15% for our clients to obtain between $100,000 and $250,000. Okay, I mean, Michael just had the opportunity to help a client who literally obtained again, this is atypical, but they obtained $250,000 at 7.03%. Imagine that, $250K, 3, 4, 5 days later, boom, electronically transferred and dropped into your business banking account. That's huge. Imagine what you would be able to do with that. Plus, they obtained serious UBLs. It was a good month for them in terms of funding. All right. Now, during the next 2 years, what will happen is over the course of that time, and again, based upon the success of the business, you will obtain somewhere between $500,000, $500,000, and $2 million of this operating capital. All right? Excuse me. Man, in Vegas, spring has arrived, and pollen is huge. I don't normally sound this husky. Anyway, so again, over the course of 2 years, $500,000, $2 million, again, based upon the success of the business. But it's a simple process. Jeremy, will you go ahead and advance the slide again? What we'll see on our screen here is we're going to see those 3 primary funding categories with all the different subcategories underneath. Once again, our focus is now just going to be on these 2. So the UBLs and UCLs initially, because based upon their size, will be primarily what you're going to take care of here in the operating capital. I'll address this just a little bit, but this will not be the primary focus of the rest of our conversation. Okay, so operating capital. This is the cash, as I said before, that runs the day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month operations of your company. So, for example, you should be paying yourselves a salary from your business. Now, I dare say, when I ask audiences, maybe I'll get 1 or 2 hands that go up. Normally speaking, most business owners are not paying themselves a salary, but you're required to. In fact, if I remember correctly, there was a memorandum in the spring of 2017 basically telling us that the IRS is going to have increased scrutiny of LLCs and S corporations, et cetera, to make sure that they are paying themselves a salary. So we'll do some post-training, guide you how much, what the percentages are to keep your nose clean, et cetera. But again, how cool would that be to draw a salary while you're working on your dream? Also, you can use this money to smooth out payroll, pays the office rent, It pays for the company car, pays for the gas that goes in the company car, pays for you to attend business meetings, to do cover lunch and business dinners, to go to events, conventions, workshops, seminars, et cetera, et cetera. You can use it for marketing, something as simple as a business card or full-blown website and SEO marketing, et cetera. You can do, that's what you use this for, okay, business. It also allows you to take advantage of opportunities that pop up. The simplest one for me that we all understand is, let's say, real estate, for example. Let's say that some real estate investor is out there doing stuff and they stumble across a great property. They say, oh, wow, I need to lock this up. Well, they're probably competing with another dozen, real estate folks out there to do creative financing, the whole bit. Well, now this real estate investor, if you're one of them, is able to sit down literally with that seller, go over their terms and say, and by the way, can I stroke you a check for $3,000 earnest money to lock the property up? Well, if you're on the other side of that coffee table, you're saying, yeah, this guy's handing me cash. That matters, okay? And you get the opportunity. You take it down while you come back to us to get your rehab and the rest of your acquisition capital. But cash, as we all know, is king. We've all heard that cliche. Cliches are cliches because they're true. Cash is king. But I'd like you to write this down, okay, and then apply this to your own business or businesses, okay? And this is a Reed Blake quote. This is a Reedism, okay? This is a bonus, and that is here it is, okay? Cash is oxygen. It breathes life into your business. That's what cash is, okay? Think about what you would be able to do if you had the kind of capital we just discussed in your existing business. What could you do to blow up your Agora business if you were able to have that kind of capital to deploy in marketing? And you heard him already reference Keith. And this guy is somebody you should be retaining or getting those services to blow your business up. He is he's a freaking savant. It's unreal. Okay, investment capital. I'm digressing. We do this as well. We do project-based funding. We'll do expansion stuff. So we'll do stuff. We've done everything from some single-family residences to apartment complexes. We've done pool companies, roofing companies. For heaven's sakes, Scott just did a $200,000 yoga studio down in Hermosa Beach. I mean, I didn't know there was that much to know about yoga in what we're doing, but it's amazing. It's absolutely incredible. We do growth capital. We do portfolio lending, both on notes as well as on real estate. And when appropriate, we can take a company public or help them go public. We don't do that. We don't just a mill or anything like that. We only take companies who are actually real companies poised for huge success. But again, will you advance the slide again? One more time. Okay. Once again, we're going to spend most of our time right here on UBLs and UCLs. Okay. Periodically, I'll reference trade just a little bit. That stands for tradecraft. These are industry-specific funding sources. They fund only restaurants. They fund only trucking companies. They farmers, doctors' offices, doctors, etc. We're going to be spending most of our time on UBLs and UCLs for the rest of the conversation. Unsecured business lines, unsecured cash loans. Okay, Jeremy, would you advance again? All right. Now, we're going to get into some stuff that you as small business owners should know. Okay? This is information that you should have. There are right now, 2.5 dozen business credit bureaus. So just like there are personal credit bureaus, right? Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, there are business credit bureaus. For those of us who are just general business owners, there are 4 of which we need to be aware of. Okay? These are the only 4. All the rest, again, are for trade and for specific industries. And of these 4, the 2 that we need to be most aware of are TransUnion and Experian when it comes to cash-based funding. We don't use Dun & Bradstreet for that. Okay, that's vendor stuff. Again, cash-based is TransUnion and Experian. And of those 2, the big dog, and I mean the big dog, is Experian when it comes to business capital. All right? Now, Experian on the personal side has a FICO score, right? 350 to 850. On the business side, as you can see sort of centered, right on the bottom of the screen, they have what's called an IntelliScore, the IntelliScore. And this ranges from 0 to 100. So even a 3 or 4 point improvement in that is a huge difference. But once again, Experian is the big dog when it comes to these bureaus. Okay, would you advance the slide for me again? All right. What I'd like to talk about are risk categories. One more time. All right. Now, don't get me wrong. I've simplified this, okay, for illustration purposes. These bureaus have extremely stratified, and they've got really smart actuaries that work for those organizations, okay? And so they've got risk categories. Again, I've simplified it here. Now, what we're talking about here is the various bureaus are going to rate the riskiness of the business or the industry that you're in right out the beginning. Okay, so I'll ask questions. I'll say a doctor's office. What do you think a doctor's office is rated? And I'll get different answers. I'll hear everything from preferred to high risk, and they're both right. Now, they're right on high risk for insurance purposes. High risk, likelihood of being sued is close to 100%. Okay, but as far as a business model is concerned, they're rated preferred. Okay? In other words, what's the likelihood that they go out of business? In other words, I don't know about you guys, but I never, ever, ever in my life have ever driven past a doctor's office with a big, giant blow-up gorilla, balloons, and going out of business sale signs, fixtures and stethoscopes, make best offer. I've never seen that before. So it's a pretty good business model. So the bureaus are rating the riskiness of the industry classification you're in. And that's how they start because they have no other history with you, okay? Again, most small business owners, 98%, 99%, do not have a history or a track record right now with Experian or TransUnion on the business side, okay? Yeah, they don't have an IntelliScore in terms of what they're doing because they can only be opened by a cash-based funding source. It's not like Dun & Bradstreet where you can go put stuff into your profile. No. Only a cash-based funding source can open those files for you, okay? All right. Jeremy, will you advance it one more time? Okay, you'll need to hit it again. There we go. Okay, here are 4 key scores, once again, you should be aware of regarding yourself. We've talked about 3. We've talked about your personal score a little bit. We all know how precious and important that is to maintain. We know that if we damaged it, we've got to get it fixed and then protect it for all it's worth. We've talked just a second ago about business risk ratings and how we are categorized right out the gate with our first application to our business credit scores and how important those are. As you can see, though, in box number 3, we talk about the institutional score. This is the internal score that each one of the funding sources that are extending credit to you, okay, maintain on you. They have their own internal scoring system. And over time, that score will become more important than your business credit score to that institution. Okay? And it starts right out the gate. Starts out with the application, etc. So, for example, the best way I can explain it is to use a personal, a personal funding example. Let's say that Vince and Reed both go in to the same bank to apply for an automobile loan. I dare say all of us have done an automobile application at some point in time. I'm having a hard time making my tongue work here. Sorry. So we go in. We stand there at the little thing. We're both filling out the application 4 feet apart. Okay? Now, every box on that application has a point value. +2, +1, 0, neutral, -1, -2. Okay? Now, about a third of the way down, there'll be a box that says check all that apply. It's going to have savings account, checking account, money market account, IRA, 401k, mutual funds, etc. And it says check all that apply. Well, Vince checks 5 of those. Reed, 4 feet away, I check 1, checking. So immediately, intuitively, I think we all know who had a better risk rating right out the gate based upon that box. Clearly Vince, because he showed a broader understanding of money, a deeper history with money, etc. okay, then read. Now, it doesn't mean I can't catch up. I will over time. But right now, Vince would have a better internal rating than I would. Now, what I'd like to do is give you guys a bonus. I'm going to pretend, you know, when I say, who would like a bonus? You're raising your hands. So here's a bonus tip that we give you that we teach all of our clients, that we'll be teaching you about when you make a payment. So once that institution extends you that $10,000 line, okay, we're going to have you make the payments early, 7 to 10 days, all right? Now, what ends up happening is that institution, when they report your history to Experian in the IntelliScore, they report that you're on time, or rather, they report that you weren't late. But internally, so there's the business, which shows up on the business, but internally, they're saying, wow, that Melissa, she pays early every time. That's great. So her internal score is higher. Okay. Now we get asked, well, I'll pay 15 days in advance. You don't need to do that. Okay. Pretty much you're maxed out the bonus you get, so to speak, internally there at about 10 days. There's no new advantage, so hang on to your cash. But there's your bonus tip. Pay 7 to 10 days early and pay more than the minimum. We'll cover that in just a second. Okay. Jeremy, will you advance it again? Okay. Now, these are some of the key benefits of the UBLs, okay, the unsecured business lines, all right? UCLs, unsecured cash, pretty straightforward. You got cash. You got $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 in your business bank account. You know, pretty straightforward what the advantages there are. Okay. Now, if you're taking notes, write this down. Write business. Okay. This is business funding. This money is tied to your business EIN, not your personal Social Security number. You could have $1 million of this stuff, and not one nickel of it will report to your personal credit reports. Not a nickel of this stuff. Typically, in 30, 60, 90 days, you will start to see improvements in your own personal credit scores just because you're not using your own personal assets any longer to fund business expenses. But once again, it's tied to the business, not personal. Number 2, write this down. Okay, control. Control. You can use this for any business purpose. Okay, not personal, any business purpose. All right. In other words, you get to exercise stewardship over these monies. You determine how best and when and how much of that capital to deploy to move your business forward. See, this isn't like a typical loan where you go into an institution and you give them a list of all the things that you need for which you need the funding, and then next to it, how much you're going to spend on that. That's kind of like your budget, your pro forma, inside your business plan, or whatever the case may be. That's not what this is, because then you can only draw down or have access to those funds to pay for that specific category. These are monies that you can use anytime, anywhere, any place, etc. Back to my example. You can draw down from your $10,000 line $4,000 and deploy that capital. How best you see fit. Anything you want to do within that Agora universe. All right. Number 3, please write this down. Write down OPM. OPM. Now, we've all heard that we should use other people's money. In this case, it's other institutions' money. What I love about this is it's pure leveraged OPM, right? Now, right now, the demand, the competition for your business is so high that right now Scott only takes all of our clients to funding sources that will give you 0% interest, typically for 1 to 2 years right now. Now, it varies from month to month, but right now, all of the funding sources that we're using are typically 1 to 2 years interest-free. Imagine that. Think about that. You draw that capital down, you pay a portion or all of it back, 100% went to principal, not one nickel to an interest rate. Okay? Now, we need to keep those lines in what we call good standing. So please write down good standing. Good standing. Now, let's say that Jeremy draws down $5,000 from his $10,000 line. He knows that what he's used that money for, it will take 3 to 4 months before he's able to pay it back. All right? The full amount. What we need to do in the meantime is we need to make payments, a minimum monthly payment. Now, those payments, again, depending upon which funding source it is, will be between 1.5% to 2%. So in the example that I just used with Jeremy, if he drew down $5,000, he would need to pay $75 to $100. That's it, to keep that line in good standing. And remember, all that money, that whopping $75 to $100, went straight to principal, no interest. For heaven's sakes, if you're in that 100,000, that 5% with 100,000, you drop 50,000 down, and you'll be servicing that at the tune of $750 to $1,000 a month. That's it, in order to keep that line in good standing. So these are the kinds of resources that you would draw down, think about it, to do exactly what Agora is doing with Keith, which heard Jeremy and Vince reference earlier in the conversation, or other purposes that will drive your business forward. And when that happens, you'll have, as you can see in number 5, you'll start to receive automatic limit increases. These will happen quarterly, semi-annually, annually, upon request. Just all depends upon the funding source. But once again, you'll receive those limits sooner and higher if you're following all of the bonuses, or we call the ninja tips, that we'll be teaching you. And again, I've already shared a couple with you. So once again, tied to the business, you have control. Number 3, OPM, pure leveraged OPM, good standing, and then again, limit increases over and over and over and over again. Folks, this is forever money. You exercise wise stewardship over this money, it will never disappear. Your limits will just increase and increase and increase. I know, a former colleague of mine, great guy, a mentor. I mean, he literally every year gets around a $50,000 increase in one of his lines. He should be over $1 million with that funding source alone now. Now, it took a few years to get there, but he, again, exercises wise stewardship over that money, and those are the results. All right, Jeremy, next slide. Okay, this is something that we find very important, and we take a huge amount of pride in. In fact, this is why we're so obsessive about the client experience. Okay, you'll notice on the screen that we are what we call a performance-based company. We charge no upfront fees, none. It's the triple Z, zip, zilch, zero. Now, I was at an event speaking a few months ago, and I was practicing my Spanish with a couple of people out in the the reception area there. And when I got to this slide, I said, no upfront fees. The 3 Z's, right? The triple Z, zip, zilch, nada. I had somebody say, Mr. Blake, that's 2 Z's and an N. And I thought, what? It hit me. So if you hear me reference and say zip, zilch, nada, you know what's happened here. I've talked myself into it. So no upfront fees. Now, let me share with you what that means. Okay? No upfront fees. Okay, pay attention. If you're taking notes, actually pause for a moment so you hear what I'm saying. Okay? Each one of you on this webinar, you will have the money first. Okay? Not a pre-qual, not a pre-approval. You will physically have the money first. Your lines will be approved. You'll have the funding instruments. The cash will have been, if it's a UCL, will have been transferred to your account. You will have the money first before you ever pay us. Now think about what I just said there. You have all the money first. We're going to do all the work I'm going to talk about here in a few minutes at no cost, at no upfront fees to you. Okay, we'll do that. Now, some people tell us that you guys are crazy or you're extremely good. Bluntly, it's probably a little bit of both. But yeah, we will deliver. Okay, no upfront fees. You have no risk. Okay, bottom line is this. Just ask yourself, what does it cost me to find out what I can qualify for? What will it cost me to find out if I'm eligible now, etc.? Zero. Zip. Okay? Zilch. Nothing. Okay? This is a no risk at your end proposition. So once again, when results matter, you come to us. And we must be able to produce results or we wouldn't be able to make this kind of an offer like other groups who charge you upfront fees and they give you, quote, best efforts. Okay? So hopefully you understand the impact of that. And hopefully you understand the impact of that not just for you, but for your prospective clients, for your prospective recruits when you bring them in. There's something that they can do right now to fund their Agora business. When you go out and work with your retail clients, they'll have that money before they ever pay those fees. Then we'll cover the fees and all that in a second. Jeremy, go ahead and advance it. Okay, now hold on right there. Just the one. Okay, I'm going to be talking about for the next several minutes. And I know I've gone kind of fast on some things, but we're going to go over the qualification criteria. Then I'm going to go over the process sequence, so you know exactly what the expectations are. I'm going to do that with the qualification criteria, but I'm doing it one at a time. Okay, there are 4 qualification criteria for the first round of your UBLs. Okay, if there's anything not on these 4 items, it's not part of that process. Okay, tax returns, things like that, etc. Only the 4 things that you see on the screen. So I'm going to go through and explain it. We'll do a little bit of training as well, okay, with what we're doing. Now, when I'm giving these presentations, you know, in a ballroom or at events, towards the end, I need to have eye movement here, engagement. So you'll see it come in a little bit differently than top to bottom. All right, so I'll go through these. I'm going to stop before I have Jeremy advance to the next one. Okay, the first thing that we have to have is an existing entity. An existing entity. Now, typically speaking, we fund primarily just with LLCs, S corporations, C corporations, etc. There are a couple of exceptions to that, but that's typically what we need. Now, don't worry. In fact, let me step back and do a little caveat here. Do not disqualify yourself. Do not filter yourself out. We've been doing this for a very long time. We have solutions for every one of these things. So some people, they go, oh, I'd like the money, but I don't have an entity. I'm operating as a sole proprietor or I have a DBA. Don't sweat it. We know what to do. We have solutions for every one of these qualification criteria. Okay? So let's say that you have an existing entity. Great. Number 2 thing I want to share with you is it doesn't have to be seasoned. So ignore the 2-year rule. That's an important rule, but not for UBL funding. And then lastly, as I said before, if you don't have an entity or your clients don't have entities, don't worry about it. We'll form it. Let me give you a true story. One of our folks in Las Vegas had a client who's an ophthalmologist. This ophthalmologist wanted to get into the very lucrative assisted care facilities where you take it home and rehab it, okay, and put senior care facilities in there. Well, we said, Doc, you can't do this, or you ought not do this, rather, in your business name, your ophthalmology's clinic's name. Let's form a new business. He said, well, I don't have any seasoning on it. No problem. Don't sweat it. So here's what really happened, folks. On a Wednesday, we formed the business. By Friday, it was approved. We had the EIN. By the following Friday, Scott had already helped that guy obtain literally tens of thousands of dollars in approvals. And then over the week following, he literally ended up with somewhere in the 70,000s in terms of funding in round 1, with an entity that had been formed only 9 days earlier. So again, don't worry if you or your clients don't already have an entity. We solve it, and we solve it quickly. All right. Now, before we go on to the next, I want one last caveat here. The next 3 qualification criteria are based upon this fact. Write this down. If you or your client, your business owner, does not have an existing track record or a history, say with Experian, they don't have an IntelliScore, then the absence of that history or track record, the funding sources will now look at the business owner or one of the partners in that business as the de facto client, if that makes sense. They're going to look at their history on how they've handled unsecured funding in the past personally. So let's jump up to now the first one. Just tap the button once for me, Jeremy. So remember, these criteria are based upon the fact that you or your business owner does not have a current history, right? If they do, that changes the equation. But literally 98 to 99% of small business owners, regardless of how long they've been in business, do not have a history or track record. Okay? That's just normal. So don't act like don't misperceive that there's something crazy. All right. So let's get back into the explanation here. First criteria is going to be credit. Now, I know everybody's on mute, but here's the question I would ask each one of you to think about. What word don't you see after the word credit?
Rating.
Or score. Yeah, you don't see this, a rating or a score.
History.
Okay, the UBLs are what we call blemish driven. Blemish driven. Now I know that's I'm going to share something here that sounds kind of weird. There is such thing as good blemishes and bad blemishes, and they vary from file to file. I know that sounds weird, but let me give you 2 examples. We had a business owner come in and apply for this funding. Their credit score, air quotes, was 777. How cool is that? I mean, that's just a great set of numbers. 770, high score, but 777. That's like jackpot in old Vegas. Or, because I'm a big baseball guy, that's 3 Mickey Mantles, whose uniform number was 7. So anyway, 777. But they had 2 of the bad blemishes. So we had to pivot them into credit repair. The 2 blemishes came off, and 30 days later, they were back in it and had their $50,000 to $100,000. That simple, okay? We had another client come in out of Phoenix. She had a contract with the NFL for the Super Bowl that was in Phoenix 2 or 3 Super Bowls ago that she needed to fulfill. Her scores were in the 640s. Well, by default, there have to be blemishes, right? But she didn't have any, air quotes, of the bad blemishes. And so Scott was able to help her obtain literally, I think, a little over $60,000 in 30 days. I know Scott's on the call today, but I think he's muted for me to get the accurate numbers. But that's what Scott was able to do. Amazing. So once again, don't you determine whether or not this works for you. Let us make those decisions. Again, bluntly, we're the professionals. Let us decide, especially since right now there's no risk to you to find out. So that's what we do, and we have solutions. I'm going to go through the next 2 criteria, then I'm going to come back and sort of go off message a little bit and go through some training really quickly. All right, bring up the next one if you would, Jeremy. There we go. All right, the next thing that matters with this qualification criteria is what we call credit capacity. Capacity. Now, capacity matters when it comes to funding. All right. Now, when we talk about capacity, the basics of the formula are as follows. All of your installment debt does not count. So car loans, mortgages, HELOCs, as examples, do not factor into the formula. What does factor into the formula are all of your unsecured, say, revolving or personal lines. Okay. And what capacity means is it's the total of the limits. So it's the total of, of what your Visa, your MasterCard, your Amex is, any department store credit cards, Kohl's, Macy's, whatever, what the credit limits are, any personal lines you have that are unsecured, whether you've just got a, $2,000 or $10,000 line with your bank in your personal name, okay? It's the total of those limits. And once again, capacity matters. It's just crazy. It's just the opposite of the personal world. In the personal world, the more you have, the less they want to give you. In the business world, the more that you have, the more they will give you. It's just crazy because of the at-risk in terms of, excuse me. Again, on the personal, how much you have, the less they want to give you because they consider at-risk. On the business side, the more you have, the more they will give you. It's crazy stupid. Okay? Let me use an example here. Okay? Let's say that Vince, just for the sake of illustration, has 3 $10,000 lines. 3 $10,000 lines. He has $30,000 of capacity. Let's say that Reed has 1 $10,000 line. That means I have $10,000 of capacity. In round one, Vince will obtain tens of thousands of dollars more than I will just based upon that one criteria. So, training moment. Very often what our analysts will recommend is that we augment their personal capacity. We may recommend 1 or 2 personal cards. Okay? It's called a blended plan. And now we're not going to ask them to go in debt. We say take those 2 cards, put them in the freezer, like Dave Ramsey teaches. Okay? But all we're doing is bumping capacity. Sometimes it will have an effect in first round. Sometimes it won't. But we'll play catch up in the subsequent rounds. All right, Jeremy, let me go the last one. Okay, utilization. This is the amount of that capacity that you've utilized. Okay, and I'm going to use a baseball bat as an example. All right, on a baseball bat, they always have what we call the sweet spot. If you're able to hit that fastball in that sweet spot, it's going places. Now, you may hit the end of the bat, you may be jammed on the inside and still get base hits, no problem. But what we target is the sweet spot, where you will get the maximum amount of funding. Now, typically on the UBLs, the sweet spot is what we call 35% or less utilization. On the UCLs, 50%. I'm talking the upper range. Now, technically, we could do it on any level, but you will not get anywhere near the amount of money. So we really target getting you and your clients into that sweet spot. Okay? So let me go back to my example. And I know that Vince and Jeremy wanted me to give real complete explanations, so I'm probably going to go a little longer than I normally do in these presentations. So anyway, having said that, let's go back to my $10,000 example. All right? And let's say that I've used $7,000 of it. Or let me role play. Melissa's used $7,000 of it. Okay? Well, she would be at 70% utilization. She's not in the sweet spot, so to speak. So we're going to ask her one question. We're going to ask Melissa, do you have the ability to pay $4,000 on that line, so on that credit card, so it goes down from $7,000 to $3,000? Her answer will be either yes or no. If her answer is yes, she'll make that payment, drops it from 7 to 3. Okay, she's at 30%. She's in the sweet spot. Bam. 30 days later, she's got $50,000 to $100,000. If she says no, we say, no problem. What we'll now do is help you obtain a small bridge loan, in this case of $4,000, so that she can then pay that from 7 to 3. Now I'm going into teaching moment here, from 7 to 3,000. All right. Now remember, that installment loan is now installment debt. It doesn't factor into the formula. She has the same amount of debt, $7,000, but now she's paid down 4. Boom. 30 days later, $50,000 to $100,000. Now she can draw down on one of those lines and kill off the installment loan, that $4,000, in terms of what she's doing. So those are some examples that we're talking about. Now, please remember, folks, every single one of these examples, we have multiple solutions for each one. Okay, multiple solutions. Yesterday, Mike and Scott helped a lady obtain a $7,000 bridge loan so she could pay down and get inside the sweet spot. We do it every day and for all kinds of different amounts. So once again, don't you or you let your clients disqualify themselves or filter out. Get the paperwork in. Let us do what we do. Okay? So anyway, there's sort of presentation and training with it. Once again, remember, we have anywhere from 3 to 5 solutions for each and every one of those. So every client will sooner or later end up in that 3%. It may take us an extra 30 days. It may take us an extra 60 days, but they'll all end up getting their unsecured funding. All right, Jeremy, go ahead and put me through to the next slide. Oops, go back one. What you're going to see on your screen, folks, what we call the process sequence, the process sequence. All right, these are the external ones the clients will be involved in. You will see some other steps that are internal steps. But these are the 10 steps. And so what we do, we ask all clients, we ask each of you to make this commitment. We'd like to get through this in 7 to 10 days. Okay, 7 to 10 days to start the funding. And most people make that commitment. Most people keep that commitment. All right, the first one is to see the program or the product presentation. You guys have seen it and been trained in it simultaneously. What we're going to ask people to do is now, at the end of our conversation here, go to the landing page and input your basic information. What will happen then is we're going to schedule a consultation, and we're going to complete the enrollment form and the questionnaire. Now, the structure here is set up for when I speak in workshops and conventions. So they've seen the product presentation. They complete the enrollment form. It takes 3 minutes if they write slowly. And then when we get back, we call them. We schedule the consultation. With you folks, what we'll be doing steps 2, 3, and 4 simultaneously. Okay? So in terms of what we're doing. The questionnaire, we're going to ask you to allocate about 30 minutes for that. Typically speaking, it only takes between 10 and 20 minutes to complete. Once that takes place, you're passed on to the corporate, what we call the executive assistant call. All right? So depending on how it's set up, you guys will be doing part of what we're doing here. Once it comes in, you'll receive a call from the executive assistant. Now, here's something that's important that you should understand. Right now, because the relationship you have with Agora, okay, you're going to get access. The first, I don't know how many, 20 to maybe 100, will have access to all of the heads of each of these departments. So you're not going to be contacted by an admin. You're going to be contacted by Michael, the head of this entire department. He'll contact you, and he'll be working with you personally. I hope you grasp how powerful that is, okay? And what Michael's going to do, he's going to call you. It's going to take, 10 minutes, 15 minutes max. And what he's going to do is he's going to do three or four things. Number one, he's going to do what we call a soft credit pull. We need to see what's on your Experian and TransUnion report. We're also going to take a look and see what's out there already in the business community, in the business credit bureaus, and see if or what's being reported, okay? Number two, he's going to send you an email with a link for additional questions that need to be answered in order for us to qualify for the UCLs, not the UBLs, the UCLs, okay? Third thing he's going to do, he's going to schedule this meeting right here, the game plan meeting. And the fourth thing he's going to do, he's going to send you the link that you just click that brings you right into the room where you will see this, okay? Then what will happen is his team will start to do the analysis. They'll do all the analytics on you and your file, and then they'll create the game plan. Play 1, play 2, play 3, whatever we need to do to get you your funding, okay? Then we'll do the game plan meeting. The game plan meeting is typically scheduled 2, maybe 3 days out from when he in this case, he will do it, or his team does that executive assistant call. All right? Now, please pay attention. This is very important. You and your clients will have to be in front of a computer. Okay? This is not a phone call. It's an actual meeting. We're going to bring it up, and we're going to show you 2 documents. We call them recap documents. The first recap is on the UBLs, where you'll be seeing on the screen a summary of your strengths and weaknesses to the various funding sources. We'll be going over this, both the science and the art of what Scott does to get you your funding. Okay? You'll see it. We'll also send you a copy of it after the meeting. The second recap will be on the UCLs, what you look like and what you qualified for. On the UCLs, we'll be able to within 1 or 2% tell you exactly how much money you're going to qualify for, as well as what the interest rate will be on the UCLs. Remember, UBLs, no interest. UCLs do have interest. So once again, you need to be in front of a computer. If you're not, we reschedule the appointment. All right. Then once you see it, you say, this is awesome, go for it. 2 thumbs up. Then we're going to send you the disclosures and the contract. The disclosures are going to be just additional information that we're going to need. Copy of your driver's license, articles of organization, or articles of incorporation, as the case may be, so that when we turn in the documents, we're able to prove that you are who we say you are. All right? After that, you're going to get what's called a pre-funding compliance call. This is required by law. This will be done by a senior management team member. And what we do basically there, and as far as we know, we're the only ones that do this. But we do this, and what we're doing is we actually are going to go through it to make sure that we filled out everything correctly. We didn't, any typos, any mistakes. Because remember, as we talked to you earlier, those applications matter. How we complete those applications are critical to the approval and the initial internal score that you will have. Okay? So basically go through that. You tell us, yep, everything's correct, or you tell us, no, we misspelled something somewhere, whatever the case may be. That's the case. Once that's done, literally, folks, we push the submit button. And in 24 to 72 hours, you will start to see your very first approvals. And that process will continue over a 5 to 20-day period. It's kind of a bell curve. About a quarter of the people have it all done in 5 to 10 days. About 2/3 of the people, 10 to 15 days. And then the final percentage of folks in 15 to 20 days. So this entire process, to do it, to become eligible, and to receive the funding, all takes place over the course of 15 to 30 days. That's how quickly you have the funds in your hands. Okay, it's that cool. And then the last thing I want to share with you on this are the funding fees. Jeremy, do you want me to go into that now, or do you want to go to questions first, or do it afterwards?
Yeah, let's take a little break. I know we did have a question from Andy Bonsner. Andy, did you want to ask your question there?
Yeah, I think I put up what the minimum amount. Is there a minimum set amount that can be borrowed or funded for a small business or a proprietorship or something of that nature?
Well, we would. I mean, if it were a sole proprietorship, that would again. Let me kind of answer multiple. Number one, if you're a sole proprietorship, it wouldn't be business funds. Does that make sense? It would be personal funds. Can we do that? The answer is yes. Do we do that periodically? Yes, especially where there's an absence of capacity. We actually have people come to us that don't have any revolving personal credit, and so we have to create that for them.
Right.
But the answer is we can do that. On the business side, it's not so much, Andy, that there's a minimum. We're just trying to get you the most we can that's appropriate in round one. One important thing from a training perspective, folks, is when we do round one, it's not just, throw everything and see how much money we can obtain for you. That's not what's happening. Round one, everything we do is by design. It's very specific. So we are, in round one, we're actually posturing and positioning you for round two. So typically speaking, what ends up happening, where again, there's an absence of a track record with that particular business owner, what we do, well, there's an axiom that says nobody wants to be first, funding sources, nobody wants to be first, nobody wants to be the only one, okay, from a risk factor. So typically, round one, we're only doing 4 to maybe 7 submissions. Scott and his team know exactly what they're doing there, okay, and they'll fine-tune that. And by the way, folks, I just forgot to mention this. Scott is the senior underwriter. Analyst. This guy's sharp. He has underwritten. I wouldn't be surprised if it's hundreds of millions of dollars working for $1 billion company. Okay, so once again, you get him for the first. I don't know what we end up working out. 20 to no more than 100 people. You got Scott doing your game plan meeting. Anyway, so they do that analysis. It'll be 4 to 7 submissions for those approvals. What we don't control on those are the amounts of the approvals on the UBLs. We just know the ranges that you'll be in, if that makes sense. We just know the ranges. And so our goal is to get you as much as we can between those 4 to 7. And then we're setting up the future house. But if it ends up only being 15,000, you have 15,000. Are you asking, can I only have a really small amount? Is that what you're asking? You wouldn't want a bigger one?
Yeah. Say someone just for example, someone wants to start a small business or sole proprietorship, and say they have some outstanding debt that they need to get rid of, so that they can use capital to fund the business, for whatever reason, for office supplies, etc. Business costs. Do you want them to meet a minimum of like $5,000 or $10,000 or something of that nature?
Well, yeah, we can certainly do that. Our preference would be that we obtain more, because
okay.
And again, remember, you don't have to use it. These are unsecured business lines. Back to my example, okay. You may have a $10,000 limit. You may only want to use 1,000 of it. That's fine. Okay, just use 1,000. Right. You'll be paying $25 to keep it current. Keep it in good standing. You don't have to use the rest. But bluntly, okay. you want that, so it's there. Get it when you don't need it, so it's there when you do. Does that make sense? Because again, economies change, underwriting guidelines change. So you want to obtain it then. And then the other thing is remember back to what I said before, capacity matters. The more business stuff you have, far more you'll get down the road. And so the goal would be to obtain more. Even if you're not using it, that doesn't matter. You have it.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
I hope I explained that well. Sorry.
I kind of go to a phrase that I've said a lot is, better to have it, not need it, than to need it, not have it.
Right. Yeah, that's a great way of explaining it.
Hey, Jeremy, Jan has a couple questions here also.
Hi, Reed. This is Janet.
Janice?
Janet.
Oh, yeah. Janet. All right, Janet.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a couple questions. So I see where this is really good. Okay, so let's say, somebody wants to get started with all this. And I can see where it's kind of going. So let's say they don't have an LLC or an S Corp, okay, and they do everything with you guys, okay? Let's say they're just starting. Do you have with your LLCs and your S Corp, do you have it where they can start out of Las Vegas, as you well know? Great place to have it. Do you have an actual office and everything set up where you guys can do the S Corp or the LLC for them and then set it all up and then get them the funding? Tell me about that. What do you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, we have a physical. Yeah, we have a physical office here in Las Vegas. In fact, we technically have two.
And an actual
here in Vegas.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry.
That people can use for their LLC or an S Corp there.
Yeah. One thing I want to share with you is that we do a lot digitally. Even though I'm kind of lame on technology, we do a lot digitally. If somebody wants to come in and visit, we're happy to schedule time. We'll sit down in the conference room, visit, that kind of thing. But typically we do it all online.
I gotcha. Okay. And you can do it all. You can do it all from the S Corp. You can put the entities together and even have, like if somebody has a business, let's say my family, this is a true story. We own the oldest business in Folsom, California. My father started it 57 years ago. Yeah. And of course they have a Folsom business license. Okay. And, for tax purposes and everything, of course, it would be better to incorporate or have an LLC in Las Vegas, and let's say, they're changing over to that. Your company knows how to do all of these particular things. Am I correct?
Yes. Let me answer that a couple different answers. Okay.
Okay.
Now, just for the group at large. You can have an entity, so I'm answering for everybody, not just Janet on this particular question. You can have what's called a home state entity and be just fine. You don't have to organize it in Nevada for funding purposes, okay, to get funding. It can be in any state.
Right.
That's not a problem. And we help form or facilitate the formation of that in any state. So it doesn't matter whether you're in Massachusetts, Texas, Florida, Idaho, California. We can do that. So don't worry about that. Nevada is a great state from an asset protection perspective, and in a subsequent training with clients, we'll go over some ideas on that. We're not going to get into all kinds of asset protection strategies. We're going to be talking about it from a frame of reference of funding sources, what they're looking for, how you protect funding sources, why they would invest in you, okay, over time. So the answer is, yes, we can help those institutions acquire the operating capital that they're looking for, regardless of the state. Now, here's what I need to make sure that Janet, you and everybody else understands. We facilitate all of that. Does that make sense? We don't. Yeah. You wouldn't physically come in here and find Reed creating articles of incorporations and adapting business meeting minutes, forms, and things like that. We have third parties that we use for that are exceptionally good at what they do and fast. Because for us, it's about speed if someone's forming a new entity. Okay, because the faster the entity's formed, the faster we can fund it. Because it's business funding. It has to have an EIN. So we do that. We do that on the credit repair as well. We don't we're not in the credit repair business, but we have a significant number of clients that come in with some blemishes. So what we do is we have 3 or 4 groups that we actually literally, Scott on his analysis will say, I need these, just for the sake of illustration, there might be 5 blemishes on someone's report. And Scott just needs 3 of them removed, okay? We have actually 2 or 3 organizations based upon what's on their credit that we submit it to. They tell us how long it will come off and the price that they'll charge, and then we run that to the client. Client says yes, and we give them to whichever one of the 2 or 3 or 4 that make the most sense for them. And they're fast. That's one thing. This is not like a 6 months to a year process. I mean, we literally had someone with double-digit inquiries on their on their report, and they were all gone inside, 4 or 5 weeks off the credit report. And so, boom, once that was done, they got their $5,100,000. So, again, our core business is the funding. So we use, trusted folks to do the incorporations, credit repair, and that's pretty much it. Those 2 things. So the answer to your question, Janet, we'll solve it. Your family, bam, not a problem. Whether they want to do it with a California-based entity or a Nevada-based entity.
Okay.
Did I answer your question well enough?
Yes, and also let's say Susie comes into, let's just say Agora or any program, but wants to come in a business, but doesn't have one established yet. Can you set that all up online, or just like with the Nevada Corp? Because what I'm interested is, of course, the protection, the asset protection of being under that mantle of Nevada.
Yes, the answer is yes. Any state, any situation, not a problem.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it's unlikely that anybody brings anything to us that one of the 4 or 5 principals in the company haven't seen before. Like I said, we all have 7 to 25 years of experience. You're dealing with some old dogs here.
Okay, good. Yeah, so you know how to go around anything. I love it. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Hey, Jeremy,
legitimate.
Why don't we visit a website, Agora, and just kind of walk through how to submit a loan and get that started?
So, we have our description, right? So this is talking about some of the things that we've already covered, no upfront fees, no risk, some nice imagery here from the presentation about business capital experts, some FAQs, which we'll be adding to, and we have some good questions on the call, so we'll definitely get those added. And it actually looks like Vince already did take care of Andy's question. Some plans, right? So talking about the UCLs and the UBLs and some of the benefits between the 2 of them, and then the forms. Okay, so we're going to generally, like you guys would see, there's a prompt to click a hyperlink. So we'll click where it says click here, and that's going to take us over to this lead page, right? This is where we're going to input the customer's information or your guys' information if you're interested in seeing if there's a line of credit available to you guys. And it's pretty straightforward, right? First name, last name, phone number, company, email address, click I'm ready. That's going to get over to Reed and Scott and his team, and then they're going to ball rolling for everybody. So that's pretty straightforward. And then, visit special offer site. That's another way you can click on that always, and that'll take us over to the same page that you see in the Forms tab. But always just try to keep it simple. Go to the Forms tab for any of the products. If there's ever any, landing page or any information that needs to be put into another site that's not Agora's, that's where you'll find that link. And then we have Reed's contact information. I think we're going to be adding some additional contacts in there in addition to Reed. But for right now, for Vince on that call, if you have additional questions or, something hits you later, you can reach out to Reed at that number there or by email, and he'll get back to you. And then we have some commission examples here. So, it's important to know with the business loans, just like merchant services and all of those things, we don't know exactly what it's going to be yet. They have a great 80, 15, 5 rule. So we know the majority of folks will be somewhere, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's between 50 and 100 on that first round. 15% of them will be somewhere below 50, 30, 35, 40,000, and 5% of them will be, 100,000 plus. So a little range, but there's some examples here. If it's a $25,000 or $50,000 or $100,000 loan, and on average, Reed said on that first round, it's about 8 points. And again, that's no upfront money. Everybody's going to have those customers or the people receiving that funding. They're going to have that cash first. So if it's $100,000, first round UBL, okay, well, it would be $8,000 would be the fee, but they would be able to use that EBL to pay that. And then what that means to us is that of that 8,000, 23.25% is the percentage that's going to come to Agora as the CV. So in this example, $1,860 would be the CV. The advisor attached to that funding, to that loan, would receive 45% of that amount directly, or in this case, $837. So, there's going to be different amounts, and sometimes, maybe in the second round, Reed, you could maybe pick up on this part, but the second round it might be a little bit different. But on average, 8% is what that's going to be on that first round for UCLs or UBLs. So we can kind of gauge it by using that 8% number. But then Reed and I were talking earlier today. There might be some situations where somebody qualifies for several $1 million, and that's what they need. They need $7 million. It's an investment, it's a property, it's something like that, and it might be a smaller percentage, it might be a half a point or a point. But if you take, I was just doing some random math earlier. If it was a half a point and it was a $3 million loan, that's $150,000. So we're going to be getting a piece of $150,000. That's not chump change. So, it may range, depending on the size of the loan. So, anything, Vince or Reed, that you want to add to that? Because I think that's about what I wanted to cover here in the marketplace.
Yeah, the only thing I would add, just from a training perspective, is the fees are based upon 3 factors. Number 1, the amount of the funds. Number 2, the source of the funds. And number 3, what round, stage, or phase of funding you're in. So it's kind of a loyalty plus, with a client. If they're in their second or third round, they'll see their fees, say for UBLs, reduced. The charge will be smaller.